Liberal viewers of CBS I took Robbie's read, but I'm just going to keep going, are outraged over a pair of stories that recently aired on the network's News Evening show. The first one had to do with January 6th. Anchor Tony Dokoupil briefly mentioned how it was the anniversary of the Capitol riot and how a new webpage from the Trump administration was attempting to blame Democrats. Here's the clip.
Tonight, 5 years after the January 6th attack, a group of pardoned defendants marched through Washington. President Trump today accused Democrats of failing to prevent the attack on the Capitol, while House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries accused the president of, quote, whitewashing it. We'll be right back.
Now, some left-leaning viewers felt that CBS did a poor job framing the story and that they should have been harsher on President Trump. Liberal influencer Harry Sasson writing on X, quote, "This is disgraceful. CBS trying to both sides January 6th is journalistic malpractice. It's no different than Trump says the sky is green. Dems say it's blue. More at 11. Just ridiculous."
Conservative author Molly Hemingway pushed back on the outrage, writing, "It's always interesting to me how the propaganda press cannot tolerate any deviation whatsoever from their carefully scripted lines." The second segment that drew controversy was a quick profile of Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The broadcast was airing from Rubio's home city of Miami, so to celebrate, they touted Rubio's history in politics and the key roles he played in the Trump administration. Take a look.
And many jobs of Marco Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants and a former Florida senator. He's now the face of U.S. foreign policy and President Trump's point man on Venezuela, all in addition to his roles as Secretary of State, interim national security advisor, and acting national archivist and USAID chief. Whatever you think of his politics, you got to admit it's an impressive resume. It is a sign of how Florida, once an American punchline, has become a leader on the world stage. Marco Rubio, we salute you. You're the ultimate Florida man.
Again, those on the left complained that the network was too positive in its portrayal of Rubio. Pod Save America host and former Obama advisor Dan Pfeiffer said, quote, "I had very low expectations for a Bari Weiss-led CBS News, but this is exponentially worse than I imagined. Every broadcast is a naked appeal for support from the White House for Paramount's bid for Warner Brothers Discovery."
This all comes as the network is at the start of a new era with Bari Weiss as the recently appointed editor-in-chief. Weiss chose Tony Dokoupil to be the solo anchor for the evening news show, and this has been his first week leading that show. And I didn't really have a problem with any of the clips we played, so this just sounds like more leftist tears, that it's not just relentless anti-Trump propaganda or something. How they portrayed the January 6th, yeah, these people are marching for this reason. Here's what Democrats said. I mean, there is a difference of opinion over it unfolding because the police chief has said that they asked for the national troops to be sent in, and Nancy Pelosi said no to that. So there is a little bit of a dispute to mediate. It can't just be all from the liberal perspective. And then on the Marco Rubio thing, yes, highlight it is true, an important facet of American politics that Florida has become a very important. Trump lives in Florida. Marco Rubio's from Florida. His experience as a Cuban, his experience with the Cuban immigrant community, which is part of Florida, that's all context for a news story. I guess I could have done without the "we salute you" line.
That's the problem for me right there.
All right.
That's the problem. So
I would have cut the "we salute you" line. Other than that, I have no problem with it.
Okay, so I'll start with January 6th. Like, you can't both sides of the situation. You can't, by the time the evening news came on live, they had already seen that the White House posted on its webpage, government official website, a bunch of lies that the election was stolen, and continued on with that. And so that has to be included in the latest news, that the administration still will not admit that the election was not stolen. And there are multiple things that have, reportedly led to this. There's multiple things that happened in that day and in that story that could have been included, but it was just very much like, these people feel they should be part in this. So it was just light. He didn't say anything factually incorrect, but it was very light on a day that should be more serious. 140 different officers were injured. I mean, we know all the facts. So that's what I think about how that could have been better. But again, fine with that. But the Marco Rubio story, and he really does have 1,000 jobs. There's like memes going around that our producer Louis told me about that put him in different outfits.
Yeah, it's funny.
All the jobs
the
that he has.
The alligator.
And so he did say something that works, no matter what you think about him.
Rubio.
It's ridiculous how many jobs he has. But he did say something specific. No matter how you feel about his politics, he does have an extensive resume. That's fair. But at the end, we salute you. It's like, well, say we did a full piece because they were shooting the show on the streets of New York about Chuck Schumer, and at the end he says, well, we salute you. Republicans would think that was ridiculous. Like, why are you saluting him? You're an objective news journalist that's telling his resume. It's not about saluting him. He's not like somebody who's like neutrally fighting for our country. That's like a serviceman that we're saluting because that's very
that's
objective.
Not neutral either.
Well, no, saluting our service guys is very important. I think that should be a neutral stance for Americans, is that they're fighting for your freedom. You salute them. Saluting a politician is totally different, and I think that we need to be mindful.
I mean, it gets into an issue that I often have, that there's no real such thing as objectivity, and it's all, even the news from news versus opinion, that distinction, you think it's more meaningful than I do. It's opinion. Tony Dokoupil has opinions, Bari Weiss has opinions, but so do the people on MSNBC and CNN and every other local to national news broadcast. They're presenting you just the facts, just the news from no perspective, but they have perspective. They've always had a perspective. It's always been that way. It's just getting a little more obvious in a lot of ways now, and I think that can even be a good thing.
I just would like to zoom all the way out and look at this with like a drone level shot, because we understand that, CBS owners, Paramount, is trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. There is a lot of drama there. People have to understand the context.
Because they need the Trump administration's permission.
Yes, and Netflix is currently bidding for the same thing, and they're likely to go with Netflix bid, even though Paramount is offering way more money. And so they're trying to probably work with the Trump administration, which puts corporate interests above the news, which he said he wouldn't do. And so if you're just being a little lighter because you don't want to agitate, knowing that Trump is a knee-jerk reactor and agitation might lead to condemnation because he's already sued the network, well, then they will go a little bit lighter on January 6th and not bring up all the things that he said on his website the same day that they're reporting.
I have a solution. You're right. The need to flatter the president, the executive branch, so that they will say yes to this merger is a problem that could warp the coverage because they need his favor. That is a problem for news. I agree. It's a serious problem.
Thank you.
I would resolve it very simply.
How?
I would disband the antitrust division of the Department of Justice, and I would make it so that the president, the government, has no say over what company buys what company. None whatsoever. And then they wouldn't need to. Then it wouldn't matter. Then it could be relentless anti-Trump propaganda, and he couldn't do anything about it. That's the world I would want to live in, where Netflix could buy him or Paramount could buy them, and they don't need the government's approval. If they need the government's approval, they're going to be incentivized to do propaganda. It would be the same way if Democrats were in charge and they needed to flatter Elizabeth Warren and Lena Khan. They'd be like, why? Then it would be relentless January 6th coverage in exactly the way that Elizabeth Warren wants it. This is a problem. If you really want news to be presented in a more neutral or objective way, or in a way that is, let me rephrase that. If you care about it being presented in a way that is contrary to the interests of the government, which I think is a good thing, we need to curb the government's power to affect their financial decisions.
And I think initially...
But no liberal, you won't find a progressive to agree with me that the antitrust division is going to get closed down.
If you cancel Christmas on the entire antitrust division, and if you dismantle the access that the government has to kind of moderate things, then you have endless monopolies, and then you have... And we don't want that to happen, where one person or one organization is organizing all and owning all of the news outlets. Well, that will be a disaster, right? Because now all of our news still sounds the same. It's still like basically run based on the interest of a private owner. And so there's a lot of reasons why the government should be involved. Okay.
The idea of the government needs to come in to stop some media monopoly just seems like nonsense to me.
What do you mean? That's actually true.
But we don't, there's so much competition in the media space. There's an insane level of competition.
Are you saying
more
more
competition
recently
than ever before.
With
the rise of digital media and independent content creators and social media and YouTube, and there's more entertainment, there's more news, there's from a wider variety of perspectives. It used to look more like a monopoly, where if you're watching news, you're getting it from just a few companies. Now those companies are trying to merge and acquire each other so they can remain financially competitive with this vast ocean of new content that exists online. So it doesn't seem to me like too much media consolidation is not a high-level problem that government needs to, oh no, CBS and CNN could be owned by the same person.
Yeah, I know, that sounds like...
Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter even slightly. All of them, all the major networks could be owned by the same person, and it wouldn't affect
The tone and the coverage. Yes,
well, it wouldn't make it a monopoly because there's too much competition. Vast majority of people are getting their news online from people like us. It's not, you can't buy everybody up. It's impossible. It creates new and different problems, but I can't take anyone seriously. It's like, oh, there's too much consolidation in media, and there's less of it than ever before. I mean, they're attempting to consolidate to remain financially competitive with what's going on.
We'll see what happens. President Trump is looking to ban institutional investors from purchasing single-family homes. We'll be right back with that.